All right, let's get started. Who's going to the social event this evening? Raise hands, please. All right. You should all come, by the way, because it's beers, art, beers, finger food stuff. So that's nice. Starts at 7 actually. Take a good look at this picture if you want. It's something specific to it. Can anybody see it? Something special? It's the same beer. It's Stella, beer from Leuven. It's actually served in this case in 3 separate different glasses with a different shape. But it contains exactly the same liquid. It is from a bar in Antwerp, this picture. And when you go in, you can actually order a Stella. And you can choose. They ask you which glass would you like. Would you like het voetje on the left, or would you like het ribbeke in the middle, or het boerke on the right? And you can choose, but it's the same beer, so why can you choose, or why are there different glasses for beer drinking or for any drinking, like wine? There are some functional reasons, like the middle one. The ribs actually make sure that your body temperature is not transferred to the beer as quickly as it would be without the ribs, because they're the ribs. So there are some functional differences, but you can argue about they're very minor. But there is actually, some people claim, or it is actually the case, that beer tastes better or is more enjoyable when it's poured in a specific glass, and it's personal. It's really personal to everybody. So I like the middle one. It's a classic beer glass. Some people like the left one, which is more posh and makes Stella look like a premium pils. In foreign countries it's mostly used. So yeah, people enjoy their beer in different glasses, and they like it better in different glass. So, but it's all have to do with the experience, actually, the experience of the consumer of the beer. And what does that have to do with Drupal, you might think? Well, let's find out. So, my name is Jan Lemts, and I work at Amplexor. I've been working there as a Drupal consultant for the past 7 years. I've been doing Drupal development, server architecture, software architecture, talking to clients about requirements, etc. And today we want to introduce to you Geysir, which is something new we have been working on. And it's all about enhancing the user experience or the author experience in Drupal. So, what is Geysir? Geysir is actually an off-the-shelf, it's a Drupal module. It's off-the-shelf, meaning you can install it and it doesn't require any configuration or much configuration. It aims to enhance the user experience for authors by introducing an improved UI layer for their most critical tasks. You can ask yourself, is that user experience thing, is that really important? Well, we think it really is. It has many different reasons why we should focus more on the user experience in Drupal. First reason is people are more accustomed to really user-friendly systems nowadays. We come from ancient Windows systems which are not that easy to use, and before that even command line. But at this moment we're really at a point where we have these smartphones and tablets which might have a reduced functionality, but they're much more friendly in use. They're much more easy to use to perform these everyday tasks. There are some things they cannot perform, but they're much more user-friendly and cannot break that often. You do not have to format C an iPad, for example. And another thing that's to keep in mind is when we are selling Drupal, when we're doing pre-sales at clients, for example, the competition is harsh. You have, in the enterprise, you have Adobe and Sitecore and other ones which really can do nice demos, have nice features. And on the other hand side, you also have, of course, the smaller systems like Squarespace or Wix or etc., which allow non-technical people to build a website very quickly without any technical knowledge. So competition is harsh, and Drupal not always can be easily compete with these systems when you're looking at user experience. So in our opinion, Drupal lacks usability in some key areas which impact non-technical users, especially non-technical users. It's great for technical users, site builders. It's totally optimized for site builders. You have the views interface, menu system, taxonomy system, the whole backend. It's really, really nice. You can do almost a whole website without writing any code. It's also really good for developers with all the new stuff in Drupal 8, object-oriented programming, all these things. But for these end users of the system, people who do their routine daily tasks, it's not that easy to use, and they do not have the best user experience possible. So let's take a look at these authors or marketers or non-technical people in general who work with the content management system. Who are they? They're actually the end users, like I said, and they maintain the content of the website on a daily basis. So they work daily, most cases, with the CMS, and they perform certain tasks often and repeatedly all the time. A website may have more than 1,000 pages. Well, build every one of them and maintain them, and they're non-technical. So these daily tasks, when we look at our clients, when we're looking at authors, not the technical webmasters, but at the non-technical authors, marketers, etc., their number one task, according to our experience, is page building. What they need is a way to compose a page, to create a page, to edit a page, to manage the whole page, and publish it, unpublish it, work with that page, build the content in that page, provide the content, and enter it in the content management system. That is the number one critical task. You can argue about other things, but this is quite important for them. So to give an example, I'd like to do a quick story about a project we did at Karel de Grote Hogeschool. It's a group of schools in Antwerp. And they actually, like all clients, have a bunch of requirements, and I distillated a few of them. So one requirement is, so content of the website is highly editorial, which means it's not automatically generated in most parts of the website. It's done by an editor, and there is not much content reuse. Pages have distinct content. So in general, the editors, they build pages from scratch. But each page might have a kind of different layout. The layout can differ between pages. So, and we also have a graphic design. It's already done. So it's kind of tough if you look at it. Maybe we can go rich text all the way. Probably not. What we asked, please show us your design. Okay. This is the design of the new website. It's live already at this moment. And let's browse. And you will see that the page, this specific page, where are more than 100 of these pages in the website, is very long. You have different elements on this page. Some have borders, there's these black navigation bars, 3 columns, 2 columns, images, video, maps, call to actions, black regions, everything. It's actually the information of one education, a certain account and accountancy stuff. I don't know. And it's all the information about that education. So how to deal with that in Drupal? Well, first of all, we discussed with them what the quality of a good web page on their website was or is. First of all, the most important thing for a web page in general, for the specific line, but more in general, we think is accessibility. If the content is not accessible, visitors cannot find the content, cannot easily consult it on mobile devices, for example, or blind people cannot easily browse through the content if it's not accessible. So accessibility of the content is number one. Next to that, it's also important that you can tell a story with the content on the page. If you cannot tell a story and every page looks the same, you cannot really do this marketing kind of pages like you just saw. This is pure marketing. You want your visitors to come and subscribe in your school and follow the education. It has to present in a nice way, and it's slightly different between education. The page for computer science looks a bit different, looks totally different. More technical things are highlighted there and different page layouts are used. So webmasters or companies need to be able to tell their story to the visitors. It should be fast, which is a really important basic requirement actually, because speed is really necessary in pages nowadays. You tend to just leave the page if it's not fast enough. If it takes so long, visitors leave. They should also be consistent. You should find your way inside the website. When browsing to the pages, you should feel at home. You should know the structure once you get used to the website. You find the different places where the content is and where it keeps appearing. So it should have a consistent interface. And lastly, but very importantly, it should be easy to manage. If it's hard to manage, that's a bummer for the webmasters. It doesn't affect the visitors, but there are a lot of pages on these websites. And they have to be altered often. And the people have other tasks too. They do not only maintain the website, they probably have other things like printed brochures, which you have to take care of in some cases. So it has to be easy and fast to manage. Not every page on this website, and most websites, not every page is that marketing focused. In general, you have two kind of pages, and there is of course pages in between, but you have structured pages, which are it's classically used for support pages, for topics which are tagged with certain taxonomies, where you can filter by taxonomy. In this case, vacancy database, you find a job, you can look for a job here and pick the correct category and filter the list. That's very structured. That has nothing to do with marketing or pulling things together there on the layout side. On the other hand, the unstructured pages, like we just saw the long page, those are very marketing driven, and those are not that structured. They're actually composed for every page separately by the webmaster in their own way, like the company or the webmaster is actually meant to. Two approaches to solve this could be, for the fully structured content, it's perfectly okay, and to use a template approach. And that's the classic way of having pages in Drupal. You have a content type with a number of fields, and you have a template which renders those fields in the front end. A TPL file, or you can configure it using Display Suite. That's just the template approach. You cannot choose to have the field in the bottom to go in the top for this page, and on the next page you want that field in the middle. This is static. So the content comes out every time the same. And that is good for structured content. Like for example, you want the link to apply for a vacancy, it should be always on the same place in the page, because that's consistency. On the other hand side, we could choose a full rich text editor to compose the whole page. When you want that kind of page managed in a rich text editor, that's kind of hard. You have layout, image size, video size. They should more or less look the same for every page, all these components. You cannot pull this together in a rich text. Cannot be done. So, template approach. We have a fixed number of elements with a fixed order. which has a lot of advantages because it's very accessible. Developers have all the control over the accessibility stuff and SEO for every field. They can have annotations in the source code, etc. It's also good for responsive design because everything can be really fine-tuned in the CSS. We know what the template looks like, we know what the HTML is going to look like. So CSS will be appropriately. It's really fast because you have all the control. You can cache different parts or cache it fully. Images will be optimized, etc. It's also very consistent, like I said, but it's not really, you cannot do great storytelling with this because it's always the same order of elements and always the same kind of information on that page in the same order. And it's also not that easy to manage because you always have to go to the backend in Drupal. It's kind of okay, and it works for certain parts of the website. This is the perfect solution, but not all regions, of course. Then we have the full text approach, which is quite good for storytelling. You can be extremely flexible with a rich text editor, too flexible. The authors really have the responsibility there for layout, for image size, etc. That's not a good idea, unless for really short pages and small websites, but not for the pages you saw. It's also not ideal for content reuse. For example, if you want to reuse a block inside of a page, it's kind of hard to do in a rich text editor. You have to work with tokens, etc. It's not really user-friendly. So there should be something in between. We should find this balance between extreme structure and extreme flexibility. So there should be something. And that something is, we call the components approach. Components approach actually breaks down the page in several elements which can have a variable order and each having its own template. So that mixes perfectly because actually the components are consistent across the pages, but you can choose which components you include and the order of the components. The component number is not fixed. You can add components or remove them from certain pages, and it is separately for every page, like we see in the demo in a second. And it's built, most of you might know, on the paragraphs module, which is excellent for this purpose. It looks like this. This is a standard Drupal 8 website. And when you create a page, you get different components types here. So it starts as an empty canvas. You say, I want to add an image. Okay, you pick the image, give it an alt tag, and next you want to add in text, for example, and you paste in some text. You can reorder these things with drag and drop, and you save. There is your page. No worries about image size, it's taken care of. And when you use that image component in another place, it will look exactly the same with the exact same dimensions. When you try to reorder, you see you have to go to the backend and look again. Looks okay, so now the image is in the bottom. All right. For the KDG project, just to inform how we solved the components approach there. So we use this component approach, and the different components we had was, for example, text. This is a component which is a rich text editor, but it's only for these pieces of text. With that rich text editor configuration, you cannot insert an image, for example. That is not done. That is not allowed by design, because images need to be inserted using the image component, which has these optimizations configured. So we have the image component, and for every image you have a caption. So this caption can have links, etc., and it's rendered automatically below the image. You have a video, which is a connection to YouTube. You have a call to action, which has a title and a button with a text and a link. You can choose the color of the button, etc. You have a map, which is Google Maps with a layer, quote, rich text with a separate template and some special CSS, and you have columns. All the previous components I discussed can be put into a column, which is a separate paragraph type. So we're nesting the paragraphs to build columns. You can choose between 1, 2, or 3 columns. And you can drag and drop to rearrange for every column. And you can have text, video, and image mixed together. Okay, tops is also a separate component. So let's see how it looks like when managing this page. So I'm logged in as a webmaster now. And let's say we want to edit a certain piece of text. Like this line of text needs to be gone. It's not applicable anymore. So we're going to edit the page. And now we have to dig around to see where is that certain component. That's not ideal. So let's look. Here you have a certain preview presentation of the different components on the page, but it's certainly not exactly what they look like in the front end because we're in the back end. Simple. So we can remove the piece of text, and then we have to scroll to the bottom, and it's a long page, and then save, or create a new draft, or whatever. Result is that it will be gone. Okay, it's kind of hard. Imagine you have to reorder components when you want to pull in a component from the bottom straight to the top. You can probably imagine you have to have your mouse cursor and you have to bounce it against the edge of the screen to make it scroll up, and then you have to make sure you not release it by accident or it will be in the wrong place. So reordering in that interface, which is so long, it's not really interesting. So all good except for easy to manage. Pages get long, it's not ideal. Okay, so the problems are you have to constantly switch to the front and the back end in this case. It's hard to preview because you have to switch constantly. You have to search for the component in the back end, there's reordering problems, and you cannot insert a certain paragraph between other paragraphs. You always have to add one, it's added in the bottom, create it, and then drag it up or down. Not ideal. There is some work in the community to improve on that, of course, to make sure that you can insert between existing paragraphs. Solutions for this could be, why not, Drupal Quick Edit, Drupal 8 Quick Edit functionality. See how that works. In Drupal 8, you have this page, you have this little pencil, and you can say quick edit this paragraph or this piece of text, and you click. Problem. Paragraphs appear, it appears that paragraphs is currently not compatible quick edit. That's a shame. But it will be, certainly will be possible in the future, but at this moment what you see is actually the quick edit functionality is active. It's actually working on every field on the page, and paragraphs component, the paragraphs component itself, when you add it to your content type, it's actually one field. And quick edit is giving you the interface to change the content for that field, and that is of course various entities, various paragraph entities which you can edit. So what you're seeing is the back end and the front end. There is nothing good about that, so that's a shame. So this quick edit functionality is, you have great preview. It's not only for text fields, you can also use it to edit images, for example, but it only works on existing pages, and the UI is still a bit buggy and confusing, but is fixed. Okay. So another thing, what you cannot alter using quick edit is these kind of invisible fields. An invisible field, like for example, it's hard to see, but actually what we're editing here, this is when we're editing a text component in the website I mentioned. But that text component doesn't only have a rich text field, it also has some extra attributes. Like for example, put a green border around this text or make the background black. When using quick edit, imagine how it would be. You can only edit the text and maybe not that specific parameter which you want to change from the front end. So that's not ideal. So Geysir, actually what we try to do is find a solution to these problems. And we build a small module. At this moment it's still quite small. It's called Geysir. And the goals for this module for us were we want to allow editors and non-technical people to have much faster content management. Content management, all right.
It's twice as good.
It's twice as good, yes. There should be instant and accurate previews. It should be easy to use, and the initial focus of the work we would do is page building, because that's #1 critical task. So how does it look like? Imagine this is the paragraphs, a page with different components built with paragraphs, like you just saw in a demo. Then when hovering over these elements, we're actually highlighting the different elements on the page. So by hovering over the different elements on the page, you can actually get an idea of what the structure of the page is, what components are separately and which things belong together. So by just hovering over the page, you get these highlights and they indicate what the component is you are going to manipulate. And at this moment there are two buttons, edit and delete. And there's room for more buttons, as you can see. It also works on mobile. The targets, touch targets, are large. So when you, for example, using contextual links in Drupal, those are rather small. And you want to be able to touch these things on a tablet too, so the touch targets need to be bigger. So it's more easy to use. It works on mobile. And when you click edit, for example, the modal API of Drupal 8 is triggered and you get this interface on top of your website, and by which you can edit that component right from the front end without going to the back end, and that component separately, not the other ones. It also shows the other fields in that paragraph bundle or in that component type, like for example background color if there should be one. So it's using the modal API. So you can do full page building in the front end. Like I said, touch friendly, and there's no configuration actually. That's what we try to achieve, is just enable this module. It has one dependency, paragraphs, and if you have paragraphs installed, you enable the module, you get this stuff. Okay, small demo. All right. Okay, it's a page. So you can see I have text and images mixed together. And let's say we want to, so you can see here, now I see which component I'm editing. See this image is here. I have these buttons, delete and edit. I can edit this paragraph, get the pop-up. And then I can have my rich text editor right here. I can do normal things you expect. Okay, and I can save. All right, so the changes are immediately applied. Your family is in bold. There's something in italics too. So it's quite easy. It's much faster than going to the back end, alter, go to the front end, look at it, and so on. In the bottom, for example, let's delete this one. You have confirmation to be sure. And then it's deleted in the bottom. So it's quite fast to edit and delete these pages. So that's the functionality at this moment in time. That's what it's in the module at this moment. Let's find my cursor. All right. Good. So all green checkboxes now because we have components approach plus easy to manage. Quite okay. So it's actually an extra UI layer for these components for paragraphs. We are not trying to introduce new data structures here or building an own custom system of storing data. That's absolutely not the purpose, and contrary. It should be just a layer above existing components, making these modules like paragraphs easier to use. It's fully built using Paragraphs API, and we actually, for the forms, we actually extend the core content entity form system, which method in place. It's not much work to do this, as you will see in the code if you look into it. You have every paragraph is an entity, so you get the entity validation, all these kinds of things. We also have a new template for these paragraph fields, new twig files which prints the buttons on top of it. And we use modal API from Drupal core, which actually is jQuery dialog behind it. There's a module on Drupal.org for that. It's a project. You can check it out. Currently only supports these edit and deletes. We spent a few days on that with a small team to build this. And functionality, what we want to do with this is add functionality step by step. And there are a lot of things you can do with this. So what's next? Of course, you want to insert new components also. That's maybe that's the most important thing. Possible solution. This is a mock-up, this is not working yet. So edit and delete we have, but we can also have these plus buttons, which allow to insert a new component above this one you're highlighting or below it. And when you click it, you could get small pop-up, which actually shows the different paragraph bundles or the different component types which are allowed to insert in that place. You must know that when working with paragraphs, you can decide for every content type which paragraph, which component types are allowed to use in that page. Those are the ones you're allowed to use, and you can insert them. When you click one of them, the modal pops up for that bundle, and you can start adding that component in the page. So basically, the modal works exactly the same like the edit functionality. There are also alternatives possible. For example, a small dotted line with a plus in the right-hand side, for example, which shows all the places where you can insert new ones. You click and then it falls open and you have all the components and it's an alternative way. And it should allow you to initialize a page in the front end fully. So what's actually the back end of Drupal? It only serves for metadata management. Because the content is now fully managed in the front end, you can use the back end to do things which are not visible in the front end, like taxonomies or metadata with the metadata module, or place in the menu, position in the menu, etc. That cannot be done using working from the front end. There, for these things, you have to go to the back end. And that's nothing wrong with that. So what you could do, a possible scenario could be, you say create page, you fill in the metadata, click save, and then you start filling the contents. So you shouldn't start filling it in the back end. That's a possible interface. Reordering could also be possible. So on the right hand side, that button allows you to reorder it. But actually, we do not want, we were thinking about this, and it would not be ideal to just use the same interfaces in the back end, where you, like I said, you have to drag to the edge of the screen to make it scroll. So what could be a solution is that you click the reorder button, and then you can just click it, you activate the reordering system, and then you drop it in a certain place using these pluses. So you can scroll up in the browser and hover over the elements and say, I want it right here, and it inserts it right where you want it. We call it click and drop. All right. What about nested components like these nested paragraphs for building columns? It's quite hard probably to implement, but the red bar can show an entry point to enter the first level paragraph, while the blue bar actually shows the actual components which you can edit. So if you click on this button, you edit the text. If you click on this button, you add the text on the right hand side. But if you click this button, you get to the configuration of the columns to change it to a 3-column layout. It will be hard to do it, but okay. Doable. So, problem solved. Not quite entirely. We solved a certain part of the problem, but we do not have a fully solution yet. So there are still some pieces of the puzzle missing. What happens if you start editing a page like I just did? Let's say you edit a certain paragraph. You change something to bold and you save. You close the dialog and it's saved. At this moment, the visitor sees that action immediately. So your changes are immediately published. But what normally happens at clients when doing tasks as an author, they will work on this page for 10 minutes and change different things, and then when they're ready, maybe it goes to a next step in the workflow to review it by another team member, or when they're satisfied they can publish. So there has to be a way to bundle these changes and push it to the live website at one moment in time, and bundling the changes. In comes draft management. Because actually what you want is to store multiple versions of the same page. You have the published version and you have your working version. And we have a solution for that in Drupal 7. It was also available under Workbench moderation, for example, which allows you to have a draft version next to your published version and have a sort of workflow. but that interface for managing the different drafts, etc., was not that super intuitive. And it's also using a bit of Drupal jargon on technical things, and so a solution could be, and it also helps for a better preview. So at this moment you still have these buttons here, which actually which actually mess up the preview. You cannot fully preview what the page will look like because the buttons are there. So you cannot, as an author, see what the distance between the title and the content will be. There are modules to hide that and to open it with a click of a button. We can also, what we had in mind is make a more drop-down menu in the top right-hand side. It's a mock-up. And it allows you to do tasks for that page. And we're not using too many technical jargons. We're using more like terminology from other CMSs too, and more general things like, I want to preview this, then you go to the preview mode, edit draft, and then you start editing that page. It automatically creates a draft version when there's not one available, for example. You can view the published version, which is also in action now in Workbench moderation. You have translate, revisions, and you can also delete that page. It's in red, so it's clear that you'll delete that page. Because it's not fully clear now when you're installing Workbench moderation. In the bottom of the page, when you're editing a draft, is delete. It just says delete. And if you click it, the whole node is gone. So all the published revision and all the revisions are gone. So it's better that we say delete page. Maybe it's clear then that it's completely gone. Okay. And when you're arriving at a page and you say, I want to edit this page, and there is already a draft, we could present some sort of bar which said, take care, heads up, you're editing an existing draft, maybe you want to throw that away and start a new one. Some small interface optimizations there. All right. There's also a lot of other things going on in the community at this moment concerning usability and working less from the back end and more from the front end. Like, for example, the outside-in initiative, which has been introduced by Dries, which will be experimental in Drupal 8.2 when it is released. And you see here in the small video an interface to manage the menu actually in Drupal. And it actually pulls out a drawer from the right-hand side, and it actually shows the interface to manage the menu in Drupal. And you can save, and then it's immediately edited. That's great. It's a really good initiative, and we're really glad that there is more attention to this usability and user experience as a whole in Drupal. It will raise more awareness for these issues because we are a very technical community. That's mostly also the reason why maybe user experience was not top of the list. We're very technical people, engineers. We're very smart at building really complicated stuff, but mostly focus on technical people like site builders and developers. And the authors are kind of left out a bit. So this initiative is really, really good. Small problems with it at this moment. There's also in the blog post of Dries, which you should read. This is a prototype approach, and there will be it's not fully. They're not fully satisfied with the current solution. It needs optimization. It needs fine-tuning. And it actually, what it does right now, at this moment, it just pulls the back-end interface into a small drawer on the right-hand side into the front-end. It's not ideal, but it will improve, of course. This is just a first step, and it's an important step. In this particular case, you have, of course, this works for a menu with one level with 5 items, but in most pages, most websites, you have a very big menu. If you take a close look at the scroll bar, it's there. So this is a very long list. It's hierarchical, so it goes it becomes very wide actually, and does not fit the drawer. So there needs to be some thinking there about that. And we're always looking into these technologies and what we can do with them. And that is how Drupal came to be, and it's a very strong product with good right. You can really, it's great for extensibility. It's really top on the technical side. But to look more at the user experience, this is a nice quote from Steve Jobs I find very interesting. It's from '97, and actually what it says is that you got to start with the user experience and work from that on backwards to the technology. And doing that, it actually allows you to put user experience at the start of the solution and not the technology. If you work backwards to the technology, the user experience will always be center stage. So I think that's very important as a community to take into account, to work more from the user experience so that solutions will be more usable. Okay, that was it for my slides. I am glad to answer some questions if there are any. No more questions? I hope this. Oh yes.
So this works with paragraphs?
It's work with. This is working with paragraphs indeed.
Paragraphs you make your own paragraph types. Does this work with any type you make, or are there some?
Yes. So it actually, like it was on the slides in the beginning. It's actually using content entity form, which actually loads the entity and checks the type and loads the appropriate form for that entity. So you can start creating your paragraph types and it will work. So I have done nothing special. We have done nothing special for text and image in my demo. If I add video, it will also work because it's all just based on entity. And the entity content form, yes. Other questions? Yes?
Do you consider multilingual when thinking about these solutions?
Multilingual, we're just using the paragraphs and entity API. They take care of multilinguality for the different translations of a page, and also for the revisions of the separate entities for every page, and also for the revision of the page itself. So we're just talking to that API, we get those things for free.
Yeah, I was thinking more edge case, like if you move a block or a paragraph block up on the web page,
Yes.
What would happen to the French one?
So the question is, what would happen if you move a block up on the French page, and what would happen to the Dutch page when working with a multilingual website? Actually, like I said, the paragraph system is compatible multilingual in Drupal 8, and just using the Drupal 8 core APIs, and the entities are separate for every language. So every paragraph component is a separate entity, and there are different entities for different languages. And there's also the order of the entities. The different paragraphs is kept inside the node, which is the page. Other questions? Yes, in the back. Is there an estimate for the release date? This is now on Drupal.org, and it's currently a dev version. I would not use it in production yet. There are still some things we need to, little bugs that need to be removed. And there's also one issue we are struggling with at this moment, is that we are using Modal API, and Rich Text Editor has some buttons in it which also call the Modal API, like the image button and the link button. The image button is not that important because mostly when using paragraphs you do not allow images inside the Rich Text Editor. But the link button is kind of important on the web. So when you click the link button at this moment, the modal which we render will disappear and the link modal will pop up. And then you save that modal when you enter the link, and then it doesn't work, of course. So that is a problem in core, that nested modals are not allowed or not possible at this moment. It is possible in the jQuery dialog API, which is core is using, but it is not implemented by core that way for probably good reasons, and we have to find a solution for that. Maybe we have to switch to another modal system and not the core modal API. That is a possibility, but the core modal API gives us real good facilities which we get for free, and we do not want to skip that. So we're looking for a solution there. Please go to the module page if you want and start testing with this in your existing Drupal 8 website if you want. We can find some more bugs and iron them out and maybe find a solution for that issue. We have a separate issue on Drupal.org concerning the nested modals problem. I'm not sure if it will get fixed shortly, but that is one problem we have. But I'm sure there will be an alternative for the link, because it's actually two things, image and link. Those are the two problems in the rich text editor at this moment, unfortunately. So please check it out on Drupal.org. There was one question still?
Yes, it seems that the roadmap of functionality for the guidance module is similar to the current quick edit solution. And I'm wondering, is there a shared roadmap? Like, are there plans to merge them, or will they exist separately?
I'm not sure if there's an overlap. Is there a big overlap between quick edit? This person is saying there's an overlap between quick edit and Geysir. In this case, I'm not sure if, first of all, paragraphs need to be integrated in quick edit so that it gets compatible. If that is done, then not all fields are displayed in the front end. So, like for example, when editing text, you edit the text, but if there is another field related to that paragraph type, you cannot access it and change it. And that's why we prefer the modal system, because the modal system gives you more space to render the whole facet of the paragraph type. And I think that is the big difference, actually. And we're happy if quick edit becomes compatible with paragraphs. It can easily be combined with our solution just to edit it. What could happen is actually, let me go back quickly. When you have this interface, what could be is that you select, I want to add a paragraph or a component in that spot, and I click text or image. What could happen is that, how should I say it? There can be a placeholder for example, if you select image, a placeholder image can be inserted in that spot. And then you can click it and edit it with quick edit functionality. Same for text. You say, I want to add text, you get some lorem ipsum text, you click and start editing it. That's how Adobe AEM is doing this. Most CMSs work with this placeholder content. When you insert it, you immediately see what will be the effect be on my page. If I insert text, you get already a piece of text, and then you can start editing it using quick edit. So a lot of exciting things which are possible there. But at this moment, as I've understood from the paragraphs issue queue, that it is not high priority to have it work, to get it working with quick edit, and there's also not the high priority of editing from the front end. The focus on this moment, as I know of, is backend for paragraphs. That's what maintainers are currently saying. So that's why we start figuring things out and came to this. Other questions? We wrap up. Let's hope we see each other maybe this evening on the social event. So thank you.